up, nerds and nerdettes, and we little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Big Johnny G, the Two Gun Fix-It presents Legendary Gaming. I love Tuesdays because Tabletop Takeout Tuesdays, I get to tell you some bullet points on why I enjoy or love a particular title. Now, this time around, we're going back to Dungeons and Dragons. An all-time favorite of mine, as many of my regulars probably already know by now. And thank you for keep coming back. It's amazing that you do. Thank you. And this is your first time with us. We do a video every day of the week, 365 days a year. I don't take a day off. I pre-edit videos, so I can take a day off. And it doesn't look like I have to miss a day. Oh, you deserve better than that. Come on. And we do this for fun. Yeah, don't worry about algorithms or monetizing. None of that. We're just here for fun. And come on. But if you do want to show some support and love, we have a Zazzle store that has a bunch of designs. This one, check it out. We had a couple of sales recently. A couple of t-shirts and a mug. That was awesome. Whoever it was that got those, I hope you enjoy them. But now, enough of all of this. Enough of this BS. Let's get this out of the way here. Get all that out of the way. You want to find out why I enjoy yet another Dungeons & Dragons board game. So why don't I tell you why I do about Temple of Elemental Evil. All right. Thanks for making it this far. All right, now this is the first game in the series it's the fourth game overall in the series. But it's the first one in the series that I believe that Wizards of the Coast branched out with the publishing of this game and sort of published it hand in hand with WizKids. Now this game is good for 1 to 5 players, ages 14 and up, and should take an hour. Plus or minus. Not really minus, more plus. But if it isn't your first game, it probably will take you close to about an hour to play. The Dungeons & Dragons Adventure System cooperative game. There are a series of games. This one isn't. That's something else. The rest of these here, they all are. And these are interchangeable games. You can interchange the characters, their classes, their abilities, back and forth, the monsters between the games. Hell, you can take all the information from all these games, monsters, heroes, cards, tiles, and you could write your own adventure. You could DM something in a sense. And generally speaking, with all of these games in the series, that's something I absolutely love about this. Now, in 1979, Gary Gygax wrote a module, T1, The Village of Hamlet. And he had planned that this would be at least a 2-part, probably a 3 or 4-part series, with T2 being the Temple of Elemental Evil. However, originally, Gary never got around to finalizing everything he had for T2. There were other projects that took a lot of his time. For whatever reason, he kept bumping it back and bumping it back. So it wasn't until he teamed up with Frank Mentzer that they came out with T1 to 4, the whole series, making Temple of Elemental Evil, making it part of the series, making it part of Dungeons & Dragons history, and bringing the series finally all together. And this board game does, I think, a fairly good job of paying homage to some of Mentzer and Gygax's original ideas and concepts for the adventure. Now, although this is the 4th game in the series of these interchangeable, connected games, This is actually, if you haven't played any of these games yet, and you're thinking it's a little daunting, there's already like 6 games out, 7 games out, where are you even going to start? This, even though it's the 4th game and it's pretty much smack right in the middle of the series, it's not a bad starter. It's actually pretty good. I would suggest if you're not starting with Castle Ravenloft, start with this. This is a good game to help teach and learn the system overall. Now, each of the games tries to bring something new, a little bit different to the rules, without changing the game and changing the rules. And although the previous games in the series did have adventure books, and most of them did have a culmination, usually the last adventure or the last 2 adventures in the series for each of the other 3 games before this had some sort of climax to it. But that's all there was. There was no connection or story thread through the rest of the adventure, really. You could play them in any order, usually, unless you had to play the last one last. But up until that, it didn't matter. This is the first in the series that introduces a campaign mode style of gaming through the adventure book. Now, that's something the other games really needed from the beginning, and the fans had been saying ever since Castle Ravenloft that it needed to do this. I don't know why it took them until the 4th game to finally implement that, but they did, and at this point now, that's all that matters. Now, just like where the previous game of Legend of Drizzt had some pre-mapped scenario areas, in this one we find something similar, and as I mentioned in the last video, harking back to old school D&D and starting with a base of operations place, this really sort of gives you that with the preset village right there for the game. It's really nice to see that as far as being a Dungeons & Dragons player and DM and seeing the option of the village there. There's something, probably because of the familiarity of it, there's something there very warming and pleasing. Now, I have noticed that this game seems to level up a bit faster than some of the other games have. And again, at this point, you can still only level up once. You can only get to level 2. However, later in the series, the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, actually, you can go up to level 4, but that's something else. But the series, you see, has planned for this, which is why I'm bringing it up now in a different game's video, because there's a point to it. Now, because the system for XP is a little quicker, one of the reasons that they do that is it's been tough. Some of the other games, it's tough to level up, and I have actually never played a game of Castle Ravenloft or Wrath of Ashadlan where the entire party ended up leveling up by the end of it. Most of them, there's usually a couple of stragglers that don't, and I think that's one of the reasons why they address this. Also, the faster you're leveling up, the more stuff you're getting, you're advancing, you're getting new abilities. It's ringing achievements. And with this, I hate to say it because I'm not picking on anything, but the video game culture of achievements was missing in this whole series until now, because if you look at it that way. And in this game, you're using, for the XP, you're using gold. Yeah, you can convert gold to XP. Now, this is something I've heard some slack about, actually, and trying desperately here not to sound like an old curmudgeon, I have to say that these statements must be coming from newer players. They must be. Because if you've been playing the game, if you're really familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, then you know that in the basic series and in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, you got XP for gold. One of the thoughts behind that is not only the experience of getting the gold, but using the gold to do things like train. Yeah, and that was the idea that Gary had originally, why gold could equal XP. And this title, and again, appropriately enough, written by Gary Gygax, brings that concept back. I'm glad it did. Now, all through the game series, there have been encounters, cards, or events that involve traps. Of course, this is a fantasy dungeon delve. It's Dungeons and Dragons. How can there not be traps? This game, really, this one, the fourth in the series here, Temple of Elemental Evil, I feel completely ramped up the whole use of traps. And that excited the hell out of me. Well, considering that I usually use a party of all rogues, it wasn't that difficult. But I got excited. I liked seeing that. It was very Gygaxian. A very Gygaxian style of DMing. And I say DMing because the game is the DM, in a sense, with the AI, right? And classic traps, especially death traps, were a key signature of Gary, especially in his early adventures. In fact, if you look back to the basic line, and I know that there was chainmail before that, but I'm not familiar with those, I'm sorry to say. But if you look back to the original Gygax version of basic and for advanced Dungeons and Dragons, there's a lot of death from traps. A lot of traps aren't just like, I mean, some of them are just like an arrow that you'll take whatever, 1d4 damage or whatever, but some of them are like death gas. Make a saving throw versus death.
No! No, 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 no!
But yeah, it does. It uses the traps in this game a lot more than the previous titles did. And I guess lastly, I'm going to say, and it's true for the entire series, but not making a huge point of it anymore since I talked about it every time with all the other titles, is I love the miniatures. The miniatures come unpainted, the plastic miniatures, and in almost every case where it's available, they're literally using the same mold as the painted plastic miniatures that Wizards of the Coast sells. So yeah, these are just as good. In most cases, the very same. You'll notice if you have a lot of those painted miniatures like I do, you'll start noticing in these boxes here when you unbox and you play the game, you're gonna start noticing. Oh, I have that. Oh, I got that one painted. Pre-painted. The miniatures are really cool and nice to look at. I can't say that they're the greatest miniatures I've ever seen, but they're darn good. They're better than most. That's for sure. That's easily said, and I don't think it's all that arguable with most people that are familiar with these miniatures and others. So those are some of the points why I've really liked Temple of Elemental Evil, especially in the fact that it's already the fourth in a series. And it's not getting tiring to me. And I just think these are points that I wanted to inform you all on. So if anything I said here interests you, some of the pictures I put up catch your attention, make you want to learn more about the game, awesome, my job is done. I don't want to influence you in what to do. It's your money, it's your time, but I want to inform you so you can make your own decision. So thank you very much. I'm your buddy Big John at G for Two Gun Picture Presents Legendary Gaming, and I am out of here.